Hello, my name is Mark Deere and I am a filmmaker, and this is my 10th video out of my series of 100 videos that I'm going to do, one video every day for the next 100 days, about my new documentary, Confessions of a Failed Filmmaker, where I talk about the last 20 years making movies. I've made a few independent feature films and worked in corporate and done a bunch of other things, so I'll talk about that in my documentary, but day by day I'm just talking about different ideas that have come to me over the years. And the idea for today's video was a totally random one, but it's something that I've thought about a decent amount over the years, and it just came up last night. So yesterday I was driving to get food and for everybody, and I had three things that I would consider to be omens, bad omens if we want to be specific. And at one you go, oh, okay, that was weird. Two, you go, wait, is this an omen? And three, I don't even know. So omens are something that I kind of I'd never really thought of. I mean, I'd heard the word omen and I knew The Omen with Damien and 666. If you don't know about that movie, you can look it up from when I was a kid. It was a horror movie. I'm assuming it came out in the 80s, maybe the 70s. I'm not exactly sure. I might have seen it. I might have rented it on video with other horror films when I was a teenager, but I don't remember the movie, so I won't talk about it. But I remember the kid's name was Damien, so maybe I've seen it, or maybe I just know that from Wayne's World. I don't know. Anyway, I heard about it more in this book, The Alchemist. I brought it with me today thinking, oh yeah, I'll talk about this in my video. Because in the book The Alchemist, if you haven't read it, I'd say this is probably in my top two favourite books of all time. This and The Princess Bride are probably by William Goldman. That's probably my favourite book, The Princess Bride. Otherwise, this is my favourite book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And it's a bit naff really, this book. It's a bit lame. Like, it's kind of basically like a story about a little kid, or not a little kid, like a young man who goes on an adventure. That's pretty much what it is. But there's a lot of like spiritual undertones in this book, and yeah, and some of that stuff is interesting because of the cultural difference. Like, he starts in Spain and then he moves to Africa, and it's an interesting journey, but also interesting ideas are kind of put into this book. So if you've never read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, I recommend giving it a read. It's literally a one-day read. When someone told me to read it because they said it was a good book, I think I first read it in maybe 2003. And I think at that time, someone famous like Bill Clinton or someone was seen with it under his arm, reading it. So it's one of those books, I guess, inspirational. But someone said, oh, you'll read it in a day. And I was like, okay, great. I love a book I can read in a day. And at that point, I hadn't read that much in my life. I kind of skipped reading when I was a teenager. I watched a lot of movies. But since being an adult, I read a lot. And so I read it. And I think I read it in one day. I was up till I started at 11 o'clock and read till 1 in the morning. But I read it in one sitting. And just yesterday, I read Candice's book, Portable, which is a 320-page book. I think this is shorter than that. We've got a bird friend coming into our shot. There he is. He's a good-looking bird too. I don't know what he is, but he not something we'd usually see around here, I wouldn't think. You can probably hear all the birds around actually today. There's a lot of birds around. Anyway, this book, this has how many pages? This is, oh wait, that's the appendix. It has 167 pages, and Candice's book has 320 pages. So it was much longer, and I read it in a day. It took about 7.5 hours. So this obviously takes less than 7.5 hours to read. And in the book, he talks a lot about omens. This is one of the concepts that gets spoken about in this book, where he'll see something and he'll be like, I think that's an omen, or that's symbolic of this thing, and that is a symbol of this omen. It's an omen if you see that. And I bookmarked a spot. I quickly flicked through. Right towards the end of the book, it says, the boy approached the guard at the front of the huge white tent at the center of the oasis. I want to see the chieftains. I've brought omens from the desert. So the boy kind of insists his way to get into like a tent at an oasis, because he's had a vision that there's going to be a raid on the oasis. And then not far after that, a page later, one of the people there says, who is this stranger who speaks of omens? Asked one of the chieftains, eyeing the boy. And the boy says, it is I, the boy answered. And he told what he had seen. Why would the desert reveal such things to a stranger when it knows that we have been here for generations? Said another of the chieftains. Because my eyes are not yet accustomed to the desert, the boy said. I can see things that eyes habituated to the desert might not see. And this is about seeing omens in the desert. And it goes on to other things in the book. I won't read any more of it. But just that, I quickly looked it up because I remembered it, and I know he talks a lot about omens in the book. And the idea of omens always stuck with me. When you're working on movies, you put faith in the universe. Like, help me get this thing done. I really hope this thing, can work out. And in my last video, I talked about Murphy's Law. What can't go wrong will go wrong. And some people, I can't think specifically, but I've read it in books and I've seen it in videos where people say, like, you will be tested. The universe will test you. Are you committed to this project and stuff? And I don't know. I don't know if I believe that so much, but I do try to keep my eyes open to, you know, if I'm trying to be told something. I don't know. This is very woo-woo and probably nothing to do with filmmaking, but that's okay. I'm just talking about what's on my mind. And I thought this would be an interesting thing to talk about because I'll talk about omens again in a sec, but it's interesting to me that when I look at my journals, because I've been keeping a diary since I was 13, some days I'll go into detail. I go into a lot more detail usually in my morning pages because I'll just think about something with writing. And I spoke about those in another video, so you can look at the video for that. But yeah, often you'll write in your diary like, edited for 20 hours today, or like, long production today. But really the things on your mind are more things like, was that an omen? Like, is that a bad omen? Like, or what is that trying to tell me? Is that a sign? Like what is this trying to say to me? Like this bird walking across. I mean, like, what was that? It wasn't, I mean, there'd be a million magpies around because I'm in Australia and Queensland. There are magpies everywhere. I can hear the magpies wobbling. And there are kookaburras and there are cockatoos everywhere around this neighbourhood. But that was a weird bird. I don't know what it was. I've even been seeing a lot of pigeons lately, and there's always ibises. I don't really know that much about birds, but that was a bird I not usually see. So was he an omen or she? Was that a sign? Like, we had a turkey the other day in my shoot. Was that a sign that I'm an idiot making these videos? Which I honestly, I don't even know if it's a good idea. I don't know what I'm making them about yet. I'm figuring it out as I go with you. So please comment if any video resonates with you at all and I'll have a better idea of what I should talk about. This is the thing, like I've said, I was a teacher for 10 years. I've been a teacher for 10 years. I'm on leave at the moment. I've talked about that in other videos. And I worked in film for 11 years and I've been making films for 20 years. So, I don't know if anybody cares. I don't know. I mean, I've helped a lot of students, like thousands of students. And I know what I know. And I know there's a lot of people who know a lot more than me. I don't consider myself a massive expert or a master or the greatest or a guru or anything like this. But there's certainly things I know about that I can help people with if they want to know. So, and I want to build a community of people who are trying to figure this stuff out. But yeah, omens are interesting because these 3 things happened last night, and all of them, I won't say what they are because it's only relevant to it was more about Candice's book. But I just couldn't help but think these are bad omens. Something bad could be going to happen, and maybe nothing will. Maybe I'm overthinking it. And maybe look in the book and people say, that's just garbage. That's not real. And so I don't know, but I do think about these things, and I wouldn't call myself overly superstitious. So I don't walk around like, I can't go out today, it's raining, don't step on a crack. I don't think like that. I've never really been that paranoid about those sorts of things. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought this was something that wouldn't usually get written in my diary. I don't usually write, saw 3 omens today. I just write, spent 7.5 hours reading Candice's book, made corrections, sent it off to the printer. That's what I'll write, and some days I go in a bit more detail, but it's more of a, I did this than it is a, I did a double take. The third thing I saw that was weird and off-putting yesterday. And maybe you did too. I don't know. Is it I think, I've always thought, I love actors. One of my favorite things, if not my favorite thing about being a director, is working with actors. I love working with actors. I love bringing a performance out of an actor. I love helping them kind of set up the simulation and then them going with it and trying to communicate a feeling. Like, that just excites me to no end. But people talk about actors, they're a weird mob, and I've never identified as an actor. I acted in one of my films, but only because the guy who was meant to act in it couldn't, and we had no one else, and so I had to act in it. But yeah, I feel like actors have a lot more intuition and excitement and ability to improvise. Like if I was a YouTuber and I was an actor, I might be like, oh, hey, oh, look, oh, I might do something, but I'm just standing here. I'm trying to make semi-interesting shots for you to look at while I rant for a long time, and I'm sure it's a limited audience of people who are willing to sit and listen to me talking for extended periods of time, and I'm probably talking a lot and not saying much, I don't know. But I'm thinking out loud, and I don't know if that's something you do, but maybe it's solidarity. If you're watching with me, it's because you think about these sorts of things, and I'm interested to know what the people who are watching this think about, and what you're doing, and what you wish you were doing, or what you used to do, or what you're going to be doing, or what you're doing right now. I'm mostly interested in people who are doing this right now. And that's the funny thing. I'm talking about crazy stuff like omens and random things I've been talking about, writing morning pages, reading The Alchemist, and it's nothing to do with editing and which is what I got to go do when I work on this documentary and filming interviews and doing a 3-point lighting setup and, you know, setting aperture on a camera and shutter speed and ISO and understanding how that used to work back in the film days versus now. And I'm not talking about any of that stuff because to me, this is another video actually. There's another video where I'll talk about that, where you get to a certain level and you're not really thinking about, you know, how to make a cut anymore. And you're not really thinking about, you know, like how to talk to an actor. I mean, I spent 10 years trying to figure out how to do that, and I still don't think I'm a master at it, but I feel like I have a much better tool set now to be able to speak to an actor. So I'm much more interested in the story. Is the story being conveyed? Is the right emotion being conveyed here? Can I see it? If I can see it, done. Let's move on. If I can't, what can we do to make this come out? And yeah, I don't know. I guess this is unrelated to omens, but it's a video for another day. But I will say, sometimes stuff just seems too coincidental or too unique and distinct to just write off as nothing, you know, and maybe that's just because you're in the middle of creating and you're taking ideas from the universe and you're trying to create and give birth to something, so everything gets more meaning assigned to it than it maybe would if you were just living your life and working in your job or whatever. But yeah, I'm interested going down the woo-woo path. Like last year, Candice started getting into like tarot cards, and she learned the meaning of all the cards, and so she was doing a lot of tarot readings. I haven't had one from her for quite a while now, and I'll talk about this because this is sort of related to omens. It's not, but it's kind of like woo-woo stuff. How does the universe communicate? I don't really know about any of this stuff, and I'm certainly not an expert by any means about this stuff. I'm just talking out loud, and if you're an expert, let me know in the comments how wrong I am or how right I am. I don't know. Probably more likely to be wrong because I don't claim to be in any way right. But anyway, I love seeing her do tarot readings. Maybe in one of our things I'll get her to do one on camera so you can see it, because she is very intuitive, like much more like an actor, you know, than a director or director of photography. Like she's less technical and much more intuitive, you know, very writery, and she's a great editor, phenomenal editor. But yeah, I think. Yeah, she acted in one of our movies once and did a good job, whereas I acted in a different movie and did a bad job. And I think she was doing the tarot stuff, and it's funny how her method is different from, I had a tarot reading once when I was a little kid, just for fun, which that's a whole other story for another day as well. And then one of my friends tried to do a semi recently who's a bit more into that stuff, and it was not a great experience. And Candy paid for somebody to do one recently, and that was not a great experience. I'm like, ugh. Because I think a lot of people doing tarot readings, they'll get the card and they'll be like, blah, 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 and they'll just talk to you the whole time. Whereas what she did, because she understood the meaning of the cards, because she's intuitive, I don't know, my body language just touched my face. I think it's just because I've got the sun in my face and I'm sweating, in case you think I'm... Ugh. But what Candice did was she would get the card, know the meaning, give a basic kind of definition of the meaning. I don't know, maybe it was like I can't even think of a card off the top of my head, the 6 of Wands. I don't know if that's a good or a bad card. So she'd be like, oh, well, that means something. I don't know what it means. But she would say, that means kind of this. And it can be this or this or this. Does that mean anything to you? And you'd be like, well, I don't know. And I think maybe professional tarot people go, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. And you don't say one word for 60 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, you know. Maybe that's because people are uncomfortable getting asked questions. I don't know. But the way Candice does it is so much better. Like, because if anything, it feels like therapy because she's asking them, oh, what about this? Oh, how's this work? Oh, okay. Oh, how about that? Would this be that? Like, very interesting. But I think that, where am I going with this, is analogous to the whole omens thing, because it's like they could just be nothing. They could be the exact meaning of seeing whatever it was in The Alchemist that he saw, some sort of stink beetle or something. Some kind of beetle, a scarab. I can't remember what it was that he saw. Something. I've read this book like 20 times, I should remember, but I don't. I think it was a little beetle of some sort. And there are other omens as well, like the glasses and a bunch of stuff. Anyway, it's probably 2 years since I last read it. I usually read it once a year, but it's a while since I read it last. Maybe I'll start it again today. Anyway, the reason why it's comparable, yeah, is that sometimes you can look at an omen and be like, that's nothing. Sometimes you can try to interpret it as exactly as it is, but other times you're better off just asking questions of it. What does that mean? Where am I at with that? And just try and figure out yourself. Decide yourself if it has meaning. So these 3 things last night that I think of as bad omen, I don't think, oh, that's ominous. Something bad's going to happen. It's funny, a cloud is going over the sun or whatever. Oh no, I might be just going to miss it. I can see the dark cloud. I might think it's going to rain later. It's something bad could be going to happen, but I don't think it's even that. I think it's just Hey, you didn't see it the first time. Hey, you didn't see it the second time. Hey, you didn't see it the third time. Just be alert. Just be aware. And that's about as much meaning as I can take. And maybe you've seen things before and be like, I know that meant something, but I don't know what. And that's what I'm like, I don't know what. But at least I'm alert to it. I'm aware of it. I'm trying to use my intuition, and I am not particularly intuitive compared to Candice and other more intuitive people. So, and maybe you watching, maybe you're like, oh, you idiot, you just need to blah, blah. And let me know. Maybe I'll wrap it up there because I don't know a lot about this stuff and I don't have a lot to say about it. But it's just, I thought it was interesting that, you know, you'll spend 20 hours a day editing, but really stuff like this is on your mind. Something comes up, you think something, you see something, something's forced in front of your face. You have an interaction with a person, and it's like, what? And so, yeah, and yet I don't usually dwell on those sort of things. I just go, wow, I did 20 hours of it. I look at the tangible. But sometimes the intangible that's just happening in the background is equally as interesting or more interesting than the fact you did 20 hours of editing. So what do you think? Do you think about woo-woo stuff? I don't know. I've talked about big magic. I've talked about the morning pages. I've talked a bit about woo-woo stuff on this. I'm like, am I more, you know, spiritual and emotional than I give myself credit for? Because I did not consider myself to be like that. I think of myself as being very practical. But who knows? Maybe this is, when it comes to talking to about 20 years of filmmaking, maybe these are the things that are emerging because this is the stuff that's kept me doing it 20 years. This is the stuff that's kept me excited about it. It's almost like it's the humanness of it. That's what it is. I love people, man. I love people and I love working with people. I love telling stories. I think there's something magical about film. Like I've said, it's like dreams. This is a video for another day too. But anyway, I'm just segging from talking about woo-woo stuff like omens into why would I talk about this? And I think it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm much more interested in this than I am a hold up in a shop. I don't know. Though that's interesting too. It's all interesting. All right. If you watch this far, you might be thinking 20 minutes in, this isn't interesting. But there you go. You don't have to watch if you don't want to. But if you're watching and you're interested in this, please write a comment in the comments. Subscribe. This was the 10th video, so I've got another 90 videos to make in the next 90 days. So I'm committed to it, so I'm going to be doing it. And yeah, I'm genuinely interested in hearing what you think and connecting with you. But in the meantime, I'm going to pick up my book. It's probably ant riddled now. No, it looks like it stayed pretty good. And maybe I'll go home and start reading it while I log the footage from today and upload today's videos. So great talking to you again, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow, and yeah, hope you enjoyed the view.